In the heart of Nigeria, where the sun beats down mercilessly on dusty roads, a man walks with his head bowed low. This is Adewale, once known throughout his community for his generosity. Today, he passes 3 beggars without sparing a glance, his pockets full but his spirit broken. The beggars call out, "Oga, please," but Adewale quickens his pace, his eyes haunted by knowledge that weighs heavy on his soul. What if I told you some acts of charity are making you poorer by design? That the coins dropping from your palm into a beggar's bowl might be draining away not just your money, but your destiny itself. In many parts of Africa, we have always been taught that giving to those in need brings blessings. Our ancestors believed in sharing wealth to attract more abundance. But my people, there exists a shadow economy, a spiritual marketplace where your kindness is being weaponized against you through ancient rituals and dark covenants. This is the untold story of Alhaji Gambo, the wealthiest man in a small western Nigerian town, whose empire was built on the backs of unsuspecting charitable souls. A tale of spiritual manipulation, blood money, and the invisible threads connecting generosity to unexpected poverty. Let me take you to Elipa, a bustling town nestled between the rolling hills of western Nigeria, where market women spread their colorful wares under faded canopies, and the scent of jollof rice mingles with palm oil and wood smoke. A place where tradition and modernity dance an uneasy tango. In Elipa, wealth speaks louder than wisdom. The size of a man's compound, the number of his cars, the height of his fences, these are the measuring sticks of worth. Young boys dream not of knowledge but of returning home in convoys that make dust rise high enough for neighboring villages to see. This is the Nigerian dream that pulses through the veins of our story. Among the ancient Yoruba traditions that survive in Elipa is the complex relationship with those who beg. Aboki, a term that originally meant friend in Hausa, now commonly refers to beggars who line the marketplace, mosque entrances, and busy intersections. Many come from the northern regions, fleeing hardship or drought, hands outstretched for alms. Our elders taught us never to turn away an outstretched palm. The beggar might be an angel in disguise, grandmothers whisper to children, pressing coins into small fists, instructing them to give with their right hand, never the left. It is believed that charity opens the doors of heaven and closes the gates of hell. The Quran and Bible both speak highly of those who give to the poor, a spiritual investment with divine returns. And so the people of Elipa give generously, especially to those who seem most pitiful, most desperate. The more wretched the beggar, the greater the blessing for the giver, or so they believe. But in the shadow of the town's largest mansion, where Alhaji Gambo's security lights illuminate his imported marble walls, something ancient and hungry watches this exchange of coins with calculating eyes. Alhaji Gambo was not born into wealth. The elders remember when he returned to Elipa after 10 years away, his pockets as empty as a beggar's promises. But then came the miracle, or what seemed like one at the time. Like overnight rain transforming a parched landscape, Alhaji Gambo's fortune sprouted with unnatural speed. First came the filling station at the highway junction, then the block of shops in the main market. Within 3 seasons, he had opened rice mills in 3 neighboring states. His transport company's buses, painted bright green with gold lettering, connected our town to cities across the northern regions. His name appeared on billboards, buildings, and the lips of every ambitious young man. When Alhaji Gambo moved through the marketplace, people bowed as if before royalty. Market women sang his praises in improvised verses. The chief imam reserved a special front row prayer mat for him at Friday prayers. Even the local government chairman would stand when Alhaji entered the room, power recognizing greater power. Allah has blessed me so I can bless others, he would declare, distributing crisp naira notes at community gatherings. During Ramadan, his compound transformed into a feeding center where hundreds received meals. On Salah celebrations, he slaughtered more cows than the next 5 richest men combined. His philanthropy was as conspicuous as his convoy of imported SUVs. But there were whispers. Strange whispers. The night watchman at Alhaji's largest warehouse claimed to hear voices when no one was there. Pregnant women were forbidden by midwives from walking past his compound after dark. Most curious of all, in a region where successful men collected wives like trophies, Alhaji remained unmarried, his massive compound eerily empty save for servants who never seemed to last longer than 7 months in his employ. Those who walked closest to him noticed peculiar habits, how he never touched money with his bare hands, his refusal to be photographed, the locked room in his mansion that no staff was permitted to enter. The way his smile never quite reached his eyes when he watched beggars receive alms. For while the town saw his wealth, few noticed how prosperity seemed to drain from those around him, like water circling a powerful drain. Have you ever noticed how beggars in our towns never seem random? In Elipa, this was by sinister design. Alhaji Gambo had created what our modern world would call a spiritual franchise, a network of poverty strategically deployed as wealth traps. At the marketplace entrance sat blind Musa, whose plaintive Islamic prayers softened the hearts of traders arriving with morning profits. Outside the community bank knelt Rakia with her twin babies, intercepting those who had just withdrawn money. Near the motor park hunched elderly Ibrahim, catching travelers with loose change and guilty consciences before journeys. The hospital gate had crippled Yusuf, whose twisted limbs extracted donations from the grateful, healthy and desperate sick alike. What no one realized was that these weren't independent beggars. They were Alhaji Gambo's spiritual tax collectors. As darkness fell across Elipa each evening, these beggars would disappear from their post, converging at a small hut behind Alhaji's warehouse. There, they surrendered every coin, every note received during their day of professional suffering. Gambo would count the money meticulously, recording each beggar's collection in a leather-bound ledger inked in unusual red script. Tomorrow, he would tell them with that smile that never touched his eyes, you will receive twice this amount. Your loyalty brings blessings. And true to his word, the next morning each beggar would receive double their previous day's collection, making them wealthy by beggar standards while still profiting immensely from his spiritual scheme. The beggars became fanatically loyal. Who else would double their money? What beggar could earn more sitting elsewhere? The sick remained sick, the blind remained blind, but their pockets grew heavier, a perfect trap of contentment that prevented questions. None suspected they were merely vessels, conduits through which the town's collective fortune was being siphoned into Alhaji's spiritual reservoir. The coins passing through their hands carried something more valuable than metal, they carried the invisible essence of the giver's destiny. But what happened to these coins after the beggars delivered them? This is where our tale turns even darker. 3 kilometers into the dense forest beyond Elipa's outskirts stands a forbidden shrine. No paths lead to it. No villagers speak of it. Here, living in seclusion, was Alpha Mirital, a man who had crossed the boundaries between worlds that our ancestors warned should remain separate. Mirital was no ordinary spiritual practitioner. Once respected as an Islamic scholar, he had turned to darker knowledge, combining Quranic verses with ancient rituals forbidden in both Islam and traditional religions. His face, partially hidden beneath a heavy black turban, bore scars from his initiations, markings that branded him as one who had traded his own humanity for supernatural power. Every third night, Alhaji Gambo would drive alone to the forest edge. A servant would emerge from the trees to collect a leather pouch containing all the money gathered by the beggars. This was no ordinary money. These naira notes and coins had passed through the hands of generous givers, carrying their spiritual essence, their ori, destiny, their aula, wealth path. Inside the shrine, Alpha Mirital would spread the money on a specially prepared animal skin under the light of oil lamps. He would burn special herbs imported from Mali and Niger, creating smoke that turned unnaturally green. As he recited invocations, a corrupted mixture of Arabic, Hausa and Yoruba incantations, the money would be ritually redirected. In West African spiritual understanding, money isn't merely physical currency, it carries the energy imprint of its handler. When given charitably, it carries blessings that return multiplied to the giver. But in the hands of someone like Mirital, these transactions could be intercepted and redirected, like a river forcibly changed from its natural course. Each coin transferred not just potential wealth, but the actual prosperity destiny of the giver to Alhaji Gambo. Have you ever experienced unexplained financial hardship after a period of generosity? Share your thoughts in the comments. If this revelation is opening your eyes, hit that like button and subscribe to learn how to protect yourself from spiritual manipulation. Now, let's see what happened to the unsuspecting people of Elipa. Consider the fate of Mama Bintu, once owner of the largest fabric shop in Elipa's market. Known for her generosity, she never failed to give to blind Musa each morning. Within 6 months, her suppliers began delivering damaged goods. Customers complained of fabric that tore easily. Her shop, once bustling, grew quiet as misfortune clung to her business like stubborn dust. Then there was teacher Kolod, who saved for years to build a small private school. Every Friday, he gave substantial alms to elderly Ibrahim. The day after his school finally opened, a mysterious fire destroyed half the building. Insurance refused payment. Enrollment dwindled to nothing. His life's dream crumbled to ashes while Alhaji Gambo opened yet another business, a private school with facilities that put government institutions to shame. The Adeyemi twins, whose phone accessory business had made them the pride of younger entrepreneurs, faithfully donated to Rokiya and her babies. Within months, imported counterfeits flooded the market, undercutting their prices. Then customs seized their legitimate shipment at the port, demanding impossible bribes. Today, they work as salesboys in one of Alhaji Gambo's electronics shops. Most disturbing was the pattern no one initially recognized: the most generous givers suffered the most dramatic reversals. Those who dropped substantial naira into beggars' bowls found their fortunes draining like water through open fingers. Business contracts cancelled without explanation. Farms yielded diminishing harvests. Children failed crucial examinations despite excellent preparation. Yet paradoxically, as hardship spread, charitable giving increased. Desperate for divine intervention, townspeople gave even more generously to beggars, creating a vicious cycle of spiritual exploitation. The more they gave, the poorer they became, while Alhaji Gambo's empire expanded with unnatural speed. Elipa, once known for its prosperity, began carrying an invisible shroud of lack. Visitors commented on the town's unusual energy, a heaviness, a spiritual weight that pressed upon the shoulders of even the most optimistic residents. The town needed divine intervention. And it was coming, though not in the form anyone expected. Into Elipa's gathering darkness came an unexpected light. Pastor Paul Okonkwo, whose ministry had broken spiritual strongholds across West Africa, arrived in a modest sedan, no advance team, no fanfare. Unlike prosperity preachers with designer suits and gleaming watches, Pastor Paul wore simple clothes and carried a warm Bible bound in leather darker than his skin. What he lacked in ostentatious wealth, he compensated with spiritual authority that made principalities tremble. From Benin Republic to Cameroon, witch doctors had abandoned their shrines after his crusades. In Ghana, a notorious juju priest had publicly burned his charms and confessed his deeds. Pastor Paul was not merely a preacher, he was a spiritual warrior with the discernment to detect territorial strongholds. Within days of his arrival, posters appeared throughout Elipa announcing a 3-day, breaking ancestral chains, crusade. Something about these simple posters made Alhaji Gambo uneasy. For the first time, his beggars reported, he inspected their collection spots personally, instructing them to avoid the stadium area. The townspeople, desperate for breakthrough, embraced the coming crusade like parched soil receives rain. Market women contributed foodstuffs. Young men cleared the dilapidated stadium. The local government, sensing the people's mood, provided generators and security. A spiritual hunger gripped Elipa, a collective recognition that their problems transcended the physical realm. On the crusade's final night, over 15,000 people packed the stadium under a moonless sky illuminated by unsteady floodlights. Pastor Paul took the microphone, his voice cutting through darkness with prophetic precision. "There is a man in this town," he declared, "who has built his wealth on your poverty. He has positioned beggars as spiritual tax collectors, harvesting your destiny with every coin you give. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Some began weeping without understanding why. Tonight, every altar speaking against your prosperity will catch fire. For 7 hours, the stadium became a battlefield of intercession. Prayers rose like arrows into the spiritual atmosphere. Declarations shattered invisible chains. Pastor Paul led them in warfare prayers targeting the root of their collective captivity, calling down fire upon every evil altar. Let the wickedness of the wicked come to an end, he thundered as midnight approached. I prophesied that before dawn, what was hidden will be revealed. Little did the townspeople know how literally this prophecy would manifest. As the final prayers at the stadium ascended into the midnight air, 3 kilometers away in the forest shrine, Alpha Muritor clutched his throat in terror. The incantations he had begun suddenly twisted on his tongue, becoming unintelligible. His spiritual sight, that terrible gift that allowed him to see into realms where mortals should not peer, showed him invisible flames engulfing his altar. The money spread before him for the night's ritual began to smoke, though no physical fire touched it. When dawn broke, those who dared venture near his shrine found Alpha Muritor transformed. His tongue hung useless from his mouth, unable to form words. His limbs lay twisted and lifeless beneath him. Though his eyes remained open, seeing, it was as if his soul had been partially extracted from his body, not dead, yet unable to access the powers of the living. The great Alpha who had manipulated spiritual currency was now spiritually bankrupt. Meanwhile, in Elipa, a more public spectacle unfolded. As market women arranged their wares for the day's trading, a disheveled figure burst into the marketplace. Alhaji Gambo, his expensive agbada torn and soiled, his cap missing, his eyes wild with terror, began screaming confessions that froze the blood of all who heard. The money. All your money. I took your destinies, he wailed, pulling at his hair. The beggars. My beggars. They collected your blessings. Muritor turned them into curses for you and prosperity for me. He named victims specifically, Momo Bintu. I stole your business favor. Teacher colored. Your educational success fits my school now. He fell to his knees in the dirt, a broken man possessed by the weight of his exposed evil. Word spread through Elipo like wildfire. Young men armed themselves with sticks and machetes. Elders gathered in emergency council. Police were summoned from the neighboring larger town. A delegation of brave souls, led by those who had suffered most dramatically, marched toward Alhaji's compound, determined to uncover the full extent of his spiritual crimes. The web of deception, woven over years through strategic begging and ritual manipulation, was unraveling with breathtaking speed. The iron gates of Alhaji Gambo's compound, once symbols of untouchable power, fell before the crowd's determination. Led by Police Inspector Danladi and accompanied by elders wearing the grave expressions of men dispensing necessary justice, the townspeople swept through marble hallways that suddenly seemed obscene in their opulence. In Alhaji's private chamber, behind a bookshelf that swung open to reveal a hidden door, they discovered the evidence that turned suspicion to certainty. A room lined with shelves containing thousands of labeled containers, each filled with coins and notes organized by the beggar who collected them and the date of collection. Ledgers documented every transaction, every spiritual conversion performed by Alpha Muritor, every victim whose prosperity had been diverted. Most damning were the photographs, images of townspeople marked with strange symbols, their futures mapped out in diverted trajectories. Teacher Collard found his school's architectural plans with lines redirecting toward Alhaji's educational empire. Mama Bintu discovered fabric swatches from her shop arranged in ritual patterns. "Burn it," whispered an elder, his voice trembling with righteous anger. "Burn it all." The mansion that had loomed over Elipa became a pyre of purification as controlled flames consumed the infrastructure of spiritual wickedness. Alhaji Gambo, handcuffed and broken, watched his empire collapse from the back of a police vehicle. Meanwhile, his beggars, those human collection vessels, vanished like morning mist under harsh sun. Blind Musa suddenly found his legs. Crippled Yusuf disappeared into the night. Rokia abandoned her rented twins. Their strategic positions throughout town lay empty, the spiritual tax network dismantled with its master's fall. Elipa breathed collectively, like a person whose fever breaks after a long illness. Within a season, Elipa's transformation was nothing short of miraculous. Mama Bintu's fabric business flourished again, her materials regaining their quality. Teacher-colored school rose from ashes, attracting students from neighboring towns. The Adeyemi twins opened 3 new shops. Like a forest after fire, prosperity returned with renewed vigor. But the people of Elipa carry a wisdom now that money cannot buy, a discernment about the spiritual dynamics of giving. For not all outstretched hands are worthy vessels for your blessings. In today's world, where spiritual manipulation has only grown more sophisticated, remember these ancient truths: true charity never demands visibility. The most powerful giving happens in secret, where only divine eyes witness your generosity. Be especially wary of those beggars who appear in strategic locations or whose afflictions seem performative rather than genuine. When giving, silently declare, "This money carries blessings, not bondage. My destiny remains intact." Pray over your charity. Trust your instincts when something feels spiritually amiss. Remember that in African spirituality, it is not superstition but wisdom to protect your blessings. I ask you now, have you experienced unexplained financial hardship after periods of increased giving? Has this story illuminated patterns you've noticed in your own community? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this tale has opened your eyes to the spiritual dimensions of everyday transactions, subscribe now and activate the notification bell. Remember, my people, not all spiritual warfare announces itself with drums. Sometimes, it whispers through the simple exchange of coins. Bye for now.